Hey guys, Huzzy here bringing you another video. Now welcome to an episode of League Discussion, the series where I take your topics, rip them apart with my own opinions and experience, and encourage you guys to join in the conversation in the comments section below. Now I'm going to give my also final shout out to the QT all about the role ranked stuff. It will be linked in the description, so this is your final shout out. Go leave your comments there, and then the winners for the $100 Riot Point giveaway will be drawn in probably about 4 or 5 days from this video coming out. So yeah, go do that. If you've not, give your positive, negative opinions about it. I'll say in the next couple of days, there should be an update from Riot about everything ranked. About a week ago, Ed said, who's the head of ranked, they are doing a public announcement of everything that they are doing, potential changes, and that should be really any day. Hell, by the time this video comes out, it may already have happened. But let's get into it. So I will say the reason I'm doing a league discussion today is, every single... then the first topic I'm actually going to do myself, and that is when should you not play League of Legends? And not because of a negative way, not because you're disliking the game or anything like that. That obviously is a valid reason. But when, for you, is it like, it's not worth it today? And I had that today. Is I was streaming, I played one game on my main account. I was like, I'm not going to play anymore today. And it's because, what I feel anyway, you sometimes feel it or you don't. Is sometimes you're like, I'm on point today. And that's when you probably should play a lot of League. Or there's other days it's like, things are just not going my way. Basically what happened today, for example, my first game of the day, I played mid lane. I got ganked. I'm not even exaggerating. You can watch the VOD if you're a Twitch subscriber. I got ganked 5 times in a row by the enemy jungler, and he didn't gank anywhere else. The only place the enemy jungler ganked was mid lane. They weren't duo, so that wasn't the reason. But that was the only place he ganked, and obviously that put me quite far behind as a Vladimir in mid to a LeBlanc. And what was annoying is my top laner was auto-filled, and he lost really badly. He was playing Jax, he was against a Poppy. He died to Poppy in 1v1s. And then my bot lane had a Draven who wasn't in the game for the first 2 minutes. So a Draven not being in the game at the beginning, yeah, he lost lane too. But he also was one of those people that abused the LP system. He had a 43% win rate and was in Diamond 1. He used to be Master, and now he's on massive loss streak. So basically, because the LP crunch has happened, he's on his way down, but that still means you're going to occasionally meet these people, and kind of sucks. For game quality, it's not a good thing. But that's why today, after that, and then the second game, we had a remake. So my support in game number 2 didn't connect. Game was remade, and then after that I was like, I'm not really feeling it today. I'm going to call it a day. And obviously it's harder sometimes for me to do that because this is actually my job. For me doing that today, I had to make this video. I didn't have a commentary to come out tonight, but I value my LP and how good the content is rather than forcing myself to do it and forcing myself to play. And I'll say to you guys, you should be a little bit even more relaxed than I am about it. If you literally are just a little bit like, ooh, I don't think it's going to go very good today, I wouldn't play. I really wouldn't risk the LP. A lot of people care about the LP you want to climb. So if you are slightly tired or really hungry or you've got something on your mind, you've got that schoolwork to do, get that out the way first. I wouldn't risk it. So that's just number one, is never feel pressured to play the game if you're just slightly not feeling it. And that really goes, I'd say, in video games in general. We've gone through a weird period of video games used to be 100% casual. They were just a hobby, and obviously they are becoming more hardcore really as time goes on. Obviously there are people who are professional at it. Technically it's my job, but even people who aren't in the career, it's technically still their hobby. They take things incredibly seriously. After I played a bit of League, I played some Apex on stream. And then there was a guy in Twitch chat, and everyone's like, what is this guy on about? I was like, well, what level are you on Apex? I'm level 13 because I've hardly played the game. He's like, ooh, how are you only level 13? I don't get how people can play casual in video games. And everyone's like, isn't that what video games are supposed to be for? Don't be that guy. And as I mentioned, the whole topic, feel free to just have a timeout, have a couple of days off, have a day off. If you're not feeling it, don't feel pressure to do it. So that's topic number 1. And I just thought I'd say that because there are a lot of people out there that for some reason play when they shouldn't. They play 24/7. They play 10 games a day, even if they've lost 5 games in a row. My general rule has always been, if I lose 2 games in a row, I generally don't play a third. more or less, unless I have to. I've literally got no content. You know, recently we did the on the Smurf account, we had that 4 or 5 game loss streak. You know, I had to play, you know, quite often then because it's the main series of the day. But for you guys, it's a hobby, it's just for fun. Don't force yourself because you'll probably find yourself losing LP for nothing. Next one is, does League have any chance that you know, will the game die basically? And well, the first thing to say is it's inevitable. It will. You know, I'm sure when certain games came out throughout the ages, people were like, this game's going to last forever. It's not, you know, with technology increasement, with new games, with rivals, it's not going to, you know, when everybody, well, think of it, RuneScape, I know it's still going and it's still going relatively strong. They had a 4 or 5 year gap between RuneScape launched and World of Warcraft came out. World of Warcraft came out and just took over that kind of market segment. So never think that just because you're the biggest game right now doesn't mean you're going to be forever. And the way that I kind of think of it is the exact same way that it's for World of Warcraft. When you're the biggest game in your category, so in the Western scene at least, World of Warcraft is the biggest MMO. In League of Legends, it's the biggest MOBA by far. Like, it's not even close when it comes to other MOBAs. The only thing that can really kill the biggest game of the category is really themselves by making mistakes. Like, other games can come out and rival them. You know, Heroes of the Storm came out, Dota 2 came out, Smite came out, but none of them have really challenged League. Where League has always lost their player base is when League themselves are making really bad decisions. And the reason why people go, well, why do they have to change things? Why don't they just kind of leave it alone? Part of the success story of League was how much it did change. Like, from season 1 to now, it's a completely different game practically. It's got the core fundamentals, but everything else is different. And that's what made League kind of special. It changed. It patched every 2 weeks. It was nearly unheard of back then. And, you know, it's only gotten really more. But I'd say the reason why I'd say it's riskier nowadays is Riot are making changes that aren't just small little tweaks, aren't just little like updates. They're making big system changes that a lot of people just didn't really ask for. You know, Season 6 was a very bad year for Riot. That was dynamic queue. They lost a lot of players for that. The meta, and again, I do know with having conversations, I'm not going to out which writers I've spoken to, but I have been told this. The meta that there were mages in bot lane and it was kind of like a mess, they lost quite a lot of players from that meta. Like, you either love that meta or hate that meta. The people that loved it, apparently what happened was the people that loved that meta played more League than they've ever seen. Like, the average amount of games per player went up, but the actual player number went down. And that kind of just shows a divisive, like, hate or love the meta. And now thirdly, role ranked apparently is going pretty badly. But apparently in Korea the worse. North America is not liking it from what I've been told, but Korea is absolutely detesting it. So that's something. So again, it's making these changes that I think it's the problem of having, well, it's not really Riot's fault, it's just the industry standard of when you have one team in charge of a very important thing in the game and it just kind of goes through. There doesn't seem to be many things that can stop it or slow it down, or there's not really a broad conversation with the player base before they do it. Like, you know, they implemented role ranked even though there was a lot of negative feedback about it. They just still did it. It's questionable because you are definitely going to lose players. Even if you're somebody you love role ranked, that's great. It's always great that you love new systems. But when you have so much negativity before a system comes out, you know, as a player, as a company, you're going to lose some players. And is that worth doing? The answer is probably no. So yeah, going back to what could kill League itself. If League kind of continues to miss the ball on quite a lot of things and, you know, every few years makes big mistakes that causes a chunk of the player base to leave, all it then takes is another MOBA to come along that then isn't making mistakes. It doesn't have to be a better game. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. It just has to be more consistent than League. Because that's what League was. League was, back in the day, the most consistent MOBA. Because back when it was released, the only other big thing that was rivaling it was HON, and that was also pay to get into the game. You had to buy in, which obviously League has always been free to play. So yeah, the only thing that I would probably say can kill League is League itself. So we'll see how that goes in the next few years. Again, I don't see League dying anytime soon with how much investment and everything's going into the game, but Riot have to be careful. I'll say especially when you've got, like, let's say some of the legends of the game tweeting about it pretty commonly about the, I know I go on about Roll Ranked a lot, but like Hotshot today tweeted about a joke about Roll Ranked of how stupid it is. And I think it was Bang or Rush, one of the absolute legends of the game, was laughing about the new Roll Rank system. When you have the legends of the game publicly shaming it, it's like, oh boy, that's not good. So yeah. Someone's saying, I really need help on how to deal with loss streaks. Like, what do you do when you get unlucky at 11 or 15 loss game? Whoa. 11 and 15 is not what I'd call unlucky. That's a pattern. So that's one thing I'd say, is you need to differentiate when is something actually unlucky, and I'm actually somebody that doesn't really believe in luck that much. So is it actually unlucky, or is there a pattern emerging where you have to fix something? Because whenever people say to me, it's like, oh, but I had that feeder, I had this feeder, that guy fed, that guy AFK. If you're on a 10, 15 game loss streak, that's a huge loss streak. But what is the common denominator in every single one of those games? You're in every single one of those games. So instead of blaming the other people, look towards yourself and go, did I do anything to win those games? And a lot of the time they don't. Time and time again, people get a little bit confused about what actually carrying is. And no, they're not. They're not looking for plays. They're not looking to, have a lead in top lane and roam around. They're just playing the game. And when their bot lane feeds like, game's lost, they don't actively work to try and do something about it. So when your loss streaks get to those 11 or 15, I wouldn't call that an unlucky loss streak. I'd say that is something that you need to look into of why that's happening. And potentially if it is in ranked, that maybe you're not ready for ranked yet. Because again, so many people rush into ranked when they really shouldn't. Again, my general rule, wait a year before you hit level 30. You hit level 30, then you wait a year to get into ranked. The common principle is play as many normal games as you can to not risk your starting rating, which is an important thing, by the way. Your first time ever playing ranked, your first placements are the most important placements you'll ever do on that account, per account you have. But per that year is play against hopefully every single champion in the game a few times. If you go into ranked and you're like, I don't know what that champion does, I don't know what that item does. Again, you don't have to know the ins and outs, but the basics of every single champion, the basics of every single item, you're not ready. It's that simple. Right, so we have, here's the last one for today is when would you call a champion broken, and what requirement does it need to fall under to be broken, and all that. So this is kind of like a lingo question, a linguistic language question. What is broken? What is overpowered? What is weak? What is strong? The first thing to say is it's subjective. What I find overpowered, you may find weak, or vice versa. For example, a lot of low rating people find Master Yi overpowered. I actually think he's one of the weakest champions in the game. So you can see how there's already like a little bit of a difference depending who you are as a person, and that sometimes does come down to how good of a player you are. Because in high rating, Master Yi, everybody knows how to beat him. And there's higher coordination because there's higher understanding with your team. So if, say, I'm playing, for example, Lysandra, and I ultimate the Master Yi. In low rating, someone else who's got a stun may use their stun the exact same time I've used mine. So you're not maximizing the time of CC. You're using two stuns at the same time, so you're kind of wasting one of them. In high rating, you don't waste that stuff. So someone on my team, if I ult that Master Yi is 2 odd seconds stun with my ultimate, then after my stun runs out, or just about it's going to run out, they'll use theirs. And Yi's dead before he can do anything. It's about layering it and like doing really good coordination. So that's the difference. So when it comes to language, when people, I've seen in the comments going, Huz, stop calling that champion weak. Well, it is, but it's subjective to who you are, where you are, how good you are. So that's the first thing to say. But broken is, I think broken can be relatively universal, no matter what rating you're in. So broken / overpowered, because they're basically the same thing. I find it is when a champion is designed in a certain way and they're going out of that boundary, and arguably you can't deal with them very easily. For example, if a champion is designed for early game You know, they've got late game scalings. They have bad base damage, but they're late game. You know, they've got late game scaling. Their item build is really expensive. They're a monster in the late game. But if that champion suddenly is then beating stuff in the early game consistently, something's broke. You know, that's kind of where it comes from. The best example was Jax recently. He might even still be. Jax is a late game hyper carry, always has late game scalings, has a very expensive build for late game. Renekton is the opposite. Renekton is an early game champion, high base damage, you know, scaling for the early game, cheap item build comparison to Jax, and when a Jax beats a Renekton, there's something wrong. You know, it's like, well, one champion's designed for the wrong thing. And again, the off game, the first thing to say is if it happens once, forget that. That's an outlier. But if it consistently is happening, you got to look into that, because one champion's doing something they're not designed to do and beating a champion where they are designed to do that. So that to me is my definition. If you're going out of your design philosophy of a champion and it's just consistently wiping the floor with other things. The other definition is if obviously simply it's just broke. If, you know, Syndra suddenly got a 5 times scaling on her ultimate, she presses R, someone dies, that would be broken. But that type of thing, that actually doesn't happen that often in League. The other thing happens more often is that like a late game champion suddenly is doing really good in the early game because Riot tweaked with the scalings, or an early game champion is doing amazing in late game. That's rarer, but that would be the kind of same philosophy. But that's what I find broken is. You guys can let me know your definitions of different things in the comments below. As I mentioned, some of the the lingo does depend who you are as a player, what you find weak, what you find strong, what you find overpowered, etc. Because, you know, there's a personal thing that, you know, I have always pretty much sucked versus LeBlancs. I'm not very good against playing them. Would I call her overpowered? No, I'd call her strong. But if somebody is just naturally good against LeBlancs, I'm like, well, she's a weak champion. See how it can be subjective depending what you are as a player. So that's just something worth to note. But anyway, that's going to be it for this episode of League Discussion. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. There'll be more commentaries and stuff coming your way in the next couple of days. And I also will say, not in this video, but probably starting tomorrow's second Climb to Master video, there should be a Anivia replay game. I'll be giving out some of the partner codes in that game, so make sure you check that one out as the second video tomorrow. But anyway, like, subscribe, see you guys next time. If you've got any questions, leave them below, leave your opinions about what we spoke about. Anyway, peace.